Commander Jake Morrison stood at the window of the human ship Liberty Dawn, watching the massive alien vessel approach. His hands were sweating inside his dress uniform gloves. This was it. It's the moment humanity had been waiting for since they first reached the stars. The Zephyrian Empire ship was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It looked like a giant crystal flower made of metal and light. Blue and purple colors danced across its surface like living electricity. The ship was 3 times bigger than Liberty Dawn, and Jake could see smaller ships flying around it like bees around a hive. "Commander, they're requesting permission to come aboard," said Lieutenant Katie Rodriguez from the communication station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the excitement underneath. "Grant permission," Jake replied. "Tell them we're honored to meet them." Jake had been chosen to lead this mission because he was good with people. Back on Earth, he could talk to anyone and make them feel comfortable. Farmers, scientists, politicians, children, it did not matter. People liked Jake Morrison. But now he was about to meet aliens for the first time, and his stomach felt like it was full of butterflies. Dr. Lisa Park, the team's expert on alien cultures, walked up beside him. She was holding a thick book of notes about Zephyrian customs. "Remember, Jake," she said quietly, "they have very formal ways of doing things. The Queen expects to be addressed as Your Royal Majesty or Sovereign Lyara. You never look directly at her for more than 3 seconds. And whatever you do, don't touch her or offer to shake hands." Jake nodded, but he was not really listening. He was thinking about how this moment would change everything for humanity. If this meeting went well, humans would join the big family of space-traveling species. If it went badly, Earth might be left alone forever. "They're coming through the airlock now," announced Security Chief Ryan Cole. He was a big man with careful eyes who always seemed ready for trouble. The main doors of the meeting room opened with a soft hiss. The aliens that walked in were nothing like the pictures he had studied. The Zephyrian soldiers came first. They were tall and moved like dancers, but Jake could see the deadly weapons they carried. Their skin looked like it was made of dark blue metal, and it seemed to glow from the inside. They had 4 arms each and faces that were beautiful and frightening at the same time. Then came the Queen's advisors and servants. They wore long robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. When they moved, colors flowed across the fabric, like water. Finally, Queen Lyara herself entered the room. Jake had seen pictures of her, but seeing her in person was completely different. She was tall, maybe 7 feet, and moved with the grace of a cat. Her skin was deep purple and covered, with patterns that glowed soft gold. She had 4 eyes, 2 where humans would have them, and 2 more on the sides of her head. Her face was long and elegant, with high cheekbones and a mouth that looked like it was carved from precious stone. What struck Jake most was how beautiful she was. Not human beautiful, but beautiful in a way that made his heart beat faster. The patterns on her skin seemed to pulse with life, and when she looked around the room, Jake felt like she was seeing everything at once. The Queen wore a crown that looked like it was made of frozen lightning. Her dress seemed to be cut from the night sky itself, with tiny lights that twinkled like stars. When she moved, the lights moved with her, creating patterns that hypnotized Jake. Dr. Park stepped forward and began the formal greeting she had practiced 100 times. "Your Royal Majesty, Sovereign Lyara of the Zephyrian Empire, we, the representatives of humanity, welcome you aboard our vessel. We come in peace and friendship, hoping to build understanding between our peoples." Queen Lyara inclined her head slightly. When she spoke, her voice was like music made of silver and honey. "Representatives of humanity, we acknowledge your greeting. We come to evaluate whether your species is ready to join the civilized worlds of the galaxy." Jake was supposed to step forward now and give his own formal greeting. He had practiced it dozens of times with Dr. Park. He knew exactly what to say and how to say it. But when Queen Lyara turned her 4 eyes toward him, something in Jake's brain stopped working properly. Maybe it was her beauty, or maybe it was the way she seemed to look right through him. Maybe it was just nerves. Whatever it was, when Jake opened his mouth, the wrong words came out. "Hey, gorgeous Queen," Jake said with a friendly smile, the same way he might greet someone at a neighborhood barbecue. The room went completely silent. It was the kind of silence that felt heavy and dangerous. Jake could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Queen Leora's 4 eyes went wide with shock, then narrowed with anger. The gold patterns on her skin began to pulse brighter and faster. Her beautiful face twisted into an expression of fury that made Jake's blood turn cold. "Watch your mouth, human," she snapped, her musical voice now sharp as a blade. The Zephyrian soldiers immediately reached for their weapons. The air in the room suddenly felt electric with danger. Jake's heart started racing so fast he thought it might explode. Dr. Park went pale as paper. "Commander," she whispered urgently, "what have you done?" Jake realized his mistake immediately, but it was too late. He had just insulted the most powerful ruler in this part of the galaxy. From the look on Queen Lyra's face, she was not the forgiving type. One of the Queen's advisors, an elderly Zephyrian with silver patterns on his dark skin, leaned close to the Queen and whispered something in their own language. As he spoke, Queen Lyra's expression grew even more angry. "The advisor explains," Queen Lyra said, her voice cold enough to freeze fire, "that in your crude human language, you have just addressed me as if I were a common entertainer in one of your pleasure establishments. You have reduced a sovereign ruler to the level of a dancing girl." Jake felt his face go red with embarrassment and fear. "Your Majesty, I didn't mean... Silence," Queen Lyra commanded. "You will not speak again until given permission." Other aliens in the room began talking among themselves in low voices. Jake caught some of their words. The Chronari ambassador was saying something about primitive humans and unfit for civilization. The Etherian delegate mentioned quarantine and isolation protocols. Jake looked at his team. Dr. Park was frantically flipping through her notes. Trying to find some way to fix this disaster, Orion Cole had his hand near his sidearm, but Jake knew that weapons would only make things worse. Katie Rodriguez looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Queen Lyra stepped closer to Jake. Even angry, she was magnificent. The crown on her head caught the light and threw rainbow patterns on the walls, but her 4 eyes were cold as space itself. "Human," she said, making the words sound like an insult. "Your species requested this meeting. You claimed to be ready. For membership in the Galactic Federation, you promised that you understood the importance of proper behavior between civilized worlds." She paused, and Jake could feel the weight of her stare. "Instead, you greet me like I am some tavern wench. You hope to bed. Tell me, Commander Morrison, why should we not simply leave now and recommend that humanity be quarantined in your own solar system until you learn basic manners?" Jake wanted to answer, wanted to explain that it was just a mistake, that he meant no disrespect. But the Queen had told him not to speak, and he was smart enough to know that disobeying her again would be the end of everything. His heart was still racing, and he could feel sweat running down his back. In less than a minute, he had gone from making history to possibly destroying humanity's future among the stars. And the worst part was, he still thought Queen Lyra was the most beautiful being he had ever seen. The silence in the meeting room stretched on like a bad dream. Jake stood frozen, not daring to move or speak. Queen Lyra's 4 eyes remained fixed on him, and he could see the anger burning in them like cold fire. Dr. Lisa Park finally found her voice. She stepped forward carefully, keeping her eyes down as she had been taught. "Your Royal Majesty," she said, her words shaking slightly, "please forgive our commander. He meant no disrespect. Human culture is very different from yours, and he made an honest mistake." Queen Lyra turned her terrible gaze to Dr. Park. "Mistake," she said, her musical voice now sharp as broken glass. "This human looked at me, a sovereign ruler of 300 worlds, and spoke to me as if I were selling myself on a street corner. You call this a mistake?" The Queen's advisor, the elderly Zephyrian, with silver patterns, whispered more words in their own language. Queen Leora's expression grew even darker. "My advisor reminds me," the Queen continued, "that your species asked for this meeting. You begged for a chance to prove you were ready to join civilized society. And in the first moment of contact, you show us exactly what kind of creatures you are." Jake felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. He wanted to explain that he was not like that humans were good people who just did things differently. But the Queen had ordered him to stay silent. Ryan Cole, security chief, moved slightly closer to Jake. His hand was not on his weapon. Yet Jake could see he was ready for trouble. The Zephyrian soldiers noticed too, and their own hands moved to their strange-looking guns. "Please," Dr. Park said desperately, "let me explain our customs. In human culture, calling someone beautiful is meant as a compliment. We were trying to show respect and friendship." Queen Liara made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was not a happy sound. "Respect? You show respect by reducing me to my physical appearance? By treating me like an object for your entertainment?" One of the other aliens in the room, a tall creature with blue skin and too many arms, stepped forward. Jake remembered him from the briefing files. This was Ambassador Varric from the Chronari Federation. "Your Majesty, Ambassador," Varric said in a voice like grinding metal, "this is exactly what we expected from these primitive humans. They have barely left their own world, and already they show they cannot behave properly around their betters." Second alien moved closer. This one looked like it was made of light and air, shifting and changing as it moved. The Etherean delegate, Jake remembered. They were supposed to be very advanced and very peaceful. The probability calculations were correct, the Etherean said in a voice like wind chimes. Humans show a 97.3% likelihood of creating diplomatic incidents. Perhaps it would be safer for all if they remained in their own solar system. Jake felt his heart sink even lower. Not only had he insulted Queen Liara, but he was giving all the other aliens proof that humans did not belong in space. "Dr. Park?" "Tried again, Your Majesty. Please give us another chance. Commander Morrison is a good man. He leads rescue missions on Earth. He has saved thousands of lives. He would never intentionally insult anyone." Queen Liara looked back at Jake. "Is this true, human? Do you risk your life to save others?" Jake looked at Dr. Park, unsure if he was allowed to speak. She nodded quickly. "Yes, Your Majesty," Jake said carefully. "I used to be a firefighter. Before I joined the space program, I have pulled people from burning buildings. I have saved children from floods. I would never hurt anyone on purpose." "And yet," Queen Liara said coldly, "the first words you spoke to me were designed to make me feel small and worthless. How do I know you would not treat other alien species the same way?" Jake felt frustration building inside him. He had made a mistake. Yes, but it was not meant to hurt anyone. "Your Majesty," he said, "I called you beautiful because you are beautiful. I have never seen anyone or anything as magnificent as you. I was trying to be friendly." The moment the words left his mouth, Jake knew he had made another mistake. Queen. Leora's eyes flashed with fury. "Friendly?" she hissed. "You think familiarity is appropriate when addressing royalty? You think your opinion of my appearance matters to me?" Dr. Park grabbed Jake's arm. "Stop talking," she whispered urgently, but it was too late. Queen Liara raised one of her forearms, and the room fell silent again. "Humans," she said, her voice now cold as the space between stars. "You have exactly 3 days to prove that. Your species deserves a place among the civilized worlds. If you cannot show us that you understand proper behavior and respect, then you will return to your little planet and never leave it again." Ambassador Varric made that grinding laugh sound. "Again, 3 days. Your Majesty is being very generous. I would have sent them home already." The Etherean delegate's light form flickered with what Jake thought might be agreement. The mathematical probability of successful rehabilitation in 3 days is only 12.7%. Queen Liara ignored them both. She stared directly at Jake. "With all 4 eyes, Commander Morrison, you will have 3 chances to prove your worth. 3 tests that will show us whether humans can be trusted to behave properly in galactic society." "What kind of tests?" Dr. Park asked nervously. "That," Queen Liara said with a cold smile, "will be determined later. But I will tell you this. Much the first test will be about respect. The second will be about wisdom. The third will be about sacrifice." She turned to leave, her star dress flowing around her like liquid night. Then she stopped and looked back at Jake. "One more thing, Commander. If you fail even one of these tests, it will not just mean exile for your species. It will mean that I personally will recommend to the Galactic Federation that Earth be marked as a dangerous world. No alien ship will ever visit you again. No alien technology will ever help you. You will be alone in the universe forever. Jake felt the weight of those words like a mountain falling on his chest. Not just his mistake, but the entire future of humanity now rested on his shoulders. After the aliens left, the human team stood in the empty meeting room. Nobody spoke for several minutes. Finally, Ryan Cole broke the silence. Well, that could have gone better. Katie Rodriguez, who had been quiet during the whole disaster, shook her head. Jake, what were you thinking? I don't know, Jake said. Honestly, I looked at her, and she was so beautiful, and I forgot everything I was supposed to say. I treated her like she was a person instead of a queen. Dr. Park was already pulling up files on her computer tablet. We need to understand Zephyrian culture better. There has to be something we're missing. Some way to fix this. 3 tests, Ryan said grimly. Respect, wisdom, and sacrifice. Any ideas what those might involve? Dr. Park shook her head. Zephyrian records are mostly secret. We know they're a matriarchal society, meaning women rule. We know they value formal behavior and proper social ranks, but beyond that, Jake walked to the window and looked out at the Zephyrian ship. It was still beautiful, still impressive. But now it felt more like a judge waiting to pass sentence. There's something else, Jake said quietly. Did you see how angry she got? I mean, really angry. It wasn't just about protocol or manners. It was personal. What do you mean? Katie asked. Jake turned back to his team. I've seen people get mad about being disrespected before, but this was different. It was like I had hurt her somehow. Like my words actually caused her pain. Dr. Park looked up from her tablet. You think there's more going on here than just a diplomatic mistake? I don't know, Jake admitted. I get the feeling that Queen Leora's reaction wasn't just about protecting her dignity. There was something deeper, something we don't understand yet. Ryan checked his watch. Well, we've got less than 3 days to figure it out. The future of our entire species depends on it. Jake nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders like a heavy coat. 3 days to save humanity. 3 tests he knew nothing about. And a beautiful, angry queen who seemed to hate everything he represented. It was going to be the longest 3 days of his life. Dr. Lisa Park had not slept in 2 days. Her eyes were red and tired as she stared at the computer screen in her small room on the Liberty Dawn. Coffee cups covered her desk, and papers with notes about Zephyrian culture were scattered everywhere. There has to be something, she muttered to herself, scrolling through another file. Some clue about why the queen reacted so strongly. A soft knock on her door made her look up. Jake Morrison stood in the doorway, looking as tired as she felt. Any luck, he asked? Lisa rubbed her eyes. Maybe. I've been studying old Zephyrian history files that the Federation gave us. Most of it is basic stuff we already knew, but I found something interesting about Queen Lyara herself. Jake sat down in the chair across from her desk. What did you find? She's young for a Zephyrian ruler, Lisa said, pulling up a file on her screen. Only 32 years old in their counting, which is like being 25 in human years. She became queen when her mother died in an accident 3 years ago. That doesn't seem unusual, Jake said. It's not just that she's young, Lisa continued. According to these records, there have been problems in the Zephyrian Empire since she took power. Several of the noble families think she's too weak to rule. They want her older cousin, Prince Zartok, to be the leader instead. Jake leaned forward, interested now. Political trouble? More than trouble, Lisa said grimly. There have been 3 attempts to remove her from power. Each time, she managed to stay in control, but barely. The reports say she has to prove her strength constantly, or the noble families will unite against her. Jake thought about this for a moment. So when I insulted her in front of all those other aliens, you made her look weak, Lisa finished. In front of representatives from dozens of worlds, if word gets back to her own people that a human commander treated her with disrespect, it could give her enemies the excuse they need to challenge her rule. Jake felt sick to his stomach. He had thought his mistake was just about hurt feelings and diplomatic protocol. Now he realized he might have put Queen Liara's throne in danger. There's more, Lisa said, pulling up another file. I've been studying recordings of her public speeches over the past year. She's been working hard to make alliances with other species, trying to strengthen the Empire's position in the galaxy. This meeting with us was supposed to be another success story she could show her people. And instead, I ruined it, Jake said quietly, before Lisa could answer. Shh. Katie Rodriguez's voice came over the ship's communication system. Commander Morrison, please report to Observation Deck 7. We have a situation. Jake and Lisa hurried through the ship's corridors to the observation deck. When they arrived, they found Katie and Ryan Cole standing by the large window that looked out into space. Both of them looked worried. What's the situation? Jake asked. Katie pointed to a display screen that showed radar contacts. We're picking up movement around the Zephyrian ship. Small craft moving in and out. It looks like they're preparing to leave. Already? Lisa asked. We still have 2 days left. Ryan shook his head. That's not the worst part. We intercepted some of their communications. Ambassador Varric and the Etherean delegate have been talking to their home governments. They're recommending that humanity be classified as a hostile species. Jake felt his heart sink. How much time do we have?
Maybe
hours, Katie said. Once those recommendations go through official channels, it won't matter what Queen Lyara decides. The Federation will act to protect itself. Jake stared out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, with billions of people who had no idea their entire future hung in the balance, all because he had forgotten his manners for 30 seconds. I need to talk to her, Jake said suddenly. Talk to who? Ryan asked. Queen Lyara. I need to apologize properly. Not some formal diplomatic speech, but a real apology. Person to person. Lisa shook her head. Jake, that's impossible. After what happened, she won't agree to see you. And even if she did, another mistake could make things even worse. It can't get much worse, Jake pointed out. We're already facing the end of human space travel. What's the worst that could happen? She could order her ships to attack us, Ryan said grimly. Jake was quiet, for a moment, thinking. Then he looked at his team. I'm going to try anyway. Katie, can you send a message to the Zephyrian ship? Tell them I request a private meeting with Queen Lyara, just the two of us. Jake, Lisa said, this is crazy. You don't know anything about one-on-one meetings with Zephyrian royalty. There are probably 100 ways to insult her accidentally. Maybe Jake agreed. But I keep thinking about the way she looked when I said those words. It wasn't just anger. She looked hurt. Like I had said something that really bothered her on a personal level. Katie was already working at her communication station. I'm sending the message now, she said. But don't get your hopes up. The chances of her agreeing to this are, incoming. Message from the Zephyrian ship, Katie interrupted herself, looking surprised. They're agreeing to the meeting. Queen Lyara will see you in 1 hour in Observation Bay 12 on their ship. You'll be alone. Ryan immediately started shaking his head. Absolutely not. I'm not letting you go over there alone. It could be a trap. If it's a trap, having you there won't help, Jake said. Can't if it's not. Having security with me will just make her think I don't trust her. An hour later, Jake found himself walking through the corridors of the Zephyrian ship. The walls were covered with what looked like living crystal, and soft music seemed to come from everywhere at once. Zephyrian guards watched him pass, but they kept their distance. Observation Bay 12 was a large room with a curved window that looked out at the stars. Queen Lyara stood with her back to the door when Jake entered. She had changed from her formal dress into something simpler, but she was still beautiful enough to make Jake's breath catch. You requested this meeting, she said without turning around. Speak. Jake took a deep breath. This was it. His last chance to save humanity's future. Your Majesty, he began, I came to apologize. Not as a diplomat or a representative of Earth, but as Jake Morrison. As a person who said something stupid and hurtful. Queen Lyara turned to face him. In the soft light from the stars, her golden patterns seemed to glow more gently. Her 4 eyes studied his face carefully. You think your personal feelings matter? To me, she asked, but her voice was not as cold as before. I think my personal feelings are what caused this problem, Jake said honestly. I looked at you, and I forgot I was supposed to be a diplomat. I forgot about protocol and proper behavior. Just saw someone amazing, and I spoke to you the way I would speak to someone I wanted to know better." Queen Liara was quiet for a long moment. "You have no idea what you have done," she said finally. "Actually, I think I do," Jake said. "Dr. Park figured out that you're fighting to keep your throne. My disrespect in front of all those aliens made you look weak to your enemies. Back home." Queen Liara's eyes widened slightly with surprise. "Your cultural expert is more clever than I expected." She also figured out something else, Jake continued. "You've been working hard to build alliances and show strength. This meeting with humanity was supposed to be another success. Instead, I turned it into a disaster that your enemies can use against you." Queen Liara walked closer to the window. "My cousin Zartak has been waiting for me to make a mistake like this. He will say that if I cannot even control a primitive human, how can I rule an empire?" "So why did you agree to see me alone?" Jake asked. "Isn't that dangerous too?" Queen Liara turned back to him, and for the first time, Jake saw something other than anger in her eyes. "Because," she said quietly, "in all my years as queen, no one has ever spoken to me the way you did, not as a ruler or a political tool. But as a person, even if it was inappropriate, it was refreshing." Jake felt his heart beating faster. "Your Majesty." "When you called me beautiful," Queen Liara continued, "I was angry because I thought you were reducing me to my appearance. But later, I realized something. You were the first person in 3 years to see me as anything other than a crown and a throne." Before Jake could respond, an alarm began blaring throughout the ship. Queen Liara's expression immediately changed back to concern. "What is that?" Jake asked. Queen Liara pressed a button on the wall, and a voice spoke rapidly in the Zephyrian language. As Jake listened, he saw the Queen's face go pale. "There is an emergency," she said, turning to him with fear in her 4 eyes. "A massive asteroid field is heading directly toward one of our colony worlds. 3 million of my people are in danger, and our technology cannot stop it." Jake felt his diplomat training kick in. "What can we do to help?" Queen Liara looked at him with something that might have been hope. "I do not know if anyone can help. But if there is a solution, it will require the kind of thinking that no one expects. The kind of thinking that makes humans say inappropriate things to queens they have just met." Jake stared out at the stars through the observation window, his mind racing. 3 million people were going to die, and everyone was looking for answers that no one seemed to have. "Show me the data," he said to Queen Liara. "Everything you know about this asteroid field." Queen Liara pressed several buttons on a control panel. A 3-dimensional image appeared in the air between them. Jake whistled low under his breath. The asteroid field was enormous, stretching across thousands of miles of space. Hundreds of rocks, some as big as mountains, all moving toward the Zephyrian colony world of Kepler-7. "How much time do we have?" Jake asked. 48 hours before the first impacts," Queen Liara replied. "Maybe less." "What solutions have your people tried?" Queen Liara's patterns dimmed with sadness. "Everything we could think of. Our most powerful ships cannot push objects this large. Our weapons can break the smaller asteroids into pieces, but that just creates more dangerous debris. Our scientists calculate that we would need the combined fleets of 12 different species to have any chance of success. And those fleets take weeks to assemble," Queen Liara said. "We do not have weeks." Jake studied the image more carefully. He was not a scientist like Dr. Park or an engineer like the ones back on Earth, but he had spent years as a firefighter learning to see problems differently. When a building was burning and normal methods would not work, you had to think outside the box. "What about evacuation?" he asked. "Possible," Queen Liara said. 3 million people, and our transport ships can only carry 50,000 at a time. We would need 60 trips, and there is not enough time." Jake nodded, still staring at the asteroid field. Something about it reminded him of a controlled demolition he had seen once, where engineers brought down an old building by setting off explosions in exactly the right sequence. "I need to get back to my ship," he said suddenly. "I have an idea, but I need to talk to my team." Queen Liara looked at him with hope and fear mixed in her 4 eyes. "What kind of idea?" "A crazy one," Jake admitted. "The kind that will either save everyone or get us all killed trying." 30 minutes later, Jake was back on the Liberty Dawn, standing in the main meeting room with his team. Dr. Park, Katie Rodriguez, Ryan Cole, and Chief Engineer Ben Torres were all gathered around the table, looking at the same asteroid data that Queen Liara had shown him. "It's impossible," Ben said, shaking his head. "No way to move that much mass in such a short time. The physics just don't work." "What if we don't try to move all of it?" Jake asked. "What if we just change its direction slightly?" Dr. Park looked up from her calculations. "Even a small change in direction would require enormous amounts of energy. More than any ship we have can produce." "Not a ship," Jake said. "Explosives." The room went quiet. Ryan Cole was the first to speak. "You want to blow up the asteroid field?" "Not blow it up," Jake corrected. "Move it. Remember that demolition job in Chicago 5 years ago? They brought down that old skyscraper by setting off charges in exactly the right sequence. Each explosion pushed the building in a specific direction." Ben Torres began to look interested. "You're talking about using controlled nuclear explosions to alter the trajectory of the entire field?" "Exactly," Jake said. "We thread nuclear charges through the asteroid field and detonate them in a precise sequence. Each explosion pushes nearby asteroids in a slightly different direction. If we do it right, the cumulative effect changes the path of the entire field." Katie pulled up a navigation chart. "Even a change of a few degrees would be enough to make the asteroids miss the planet completely." Dr. Park was already running numbers on her computer. Timing would have to be perfect, talking about microsecond precision across thousands of miles. One mistake, and we could make the problem worse by breaking the asteroids into smaller pieces heading in random directions. "Can it be done?" Jake asked. Ben Torres was quiet for a long moment, thinking. "Theoretically, yes. We have mining charges in our cargo hold, and we could modify them for space use. The real problem is delivery. Someone would have to fly into that asteroid field and place the charges manually." "I'll do it," Jake said immediately. "No," Ryan said firmly. "Too dangerous. If something goes wrong, you'll be vaporized along with everything else. If we don't try, 3 million people die," Jake pointed out. "And if this fails, humanity gets marked as a hostile species anyway. At least this way, we go down fighting." Katie was working at her computer station. "I'm running flight simulations now. The asteroid field is dense, but a small ship with a skilled pilot could navigate through it. The bigger problem is the timing. We would need split-second coordination between multiple explosion points." "I can handle the flying," Jake said. "Ben, can you handle the technical side?" Ben nodded slowly. "I'll need at least 6 hours to modify the charges and program the detonation sequence. And we'll need Katie to coordinate everything from here, monitoring the field and adjusting timing as needed." Dr. Park looked up from her calculations. "Jake, the other alien species are going to think we're insane. The Krenari ambassador already thinks we're too primitive for space travel. When he hears about this plan..." "Let me worry about the aliens," Jake said. "Right now, we need to focus on saving those 3 million lives." 2 hours later, Jake found himself back on the Zephyrian ship, standing in a large conference room filled with alien representatives. Queen Liara sat on her crystal throne, looking more tired than angry now. Ambassador Varric from the Kronari Federation stood to one side, his blue skin dark with skepticism. The Etherian delegate flickered with what Jake had learned was their version of confusion. "Let me understand this correctly," Ambassador Varric said in his grinding voice. "You propose to fly a single small ship into a massive asteroid field and set off nuclear explosions in a precise pattern that will somehow change the trajectory of the entire field." "That's right," Jake said calmly. "The mathematical probability of success," the Etherian delegate chimed in, "is 3.7%. The probability of making the situation worse is 67.2%. The probability of the pilot's survival is 0.9%. Queen Liara leaned forward on her throne. "Commander Morrison, my own scientists have calculated similar odds." "They say your plan is suicide, maybe," Jake admitted. "But it's the only plan anyone has come up with that has any chance at all. Your evacuation ships can't move 3 million people in time. Your military ships can't push asteroids this size. Our plan might be crazy, but at least it's something." Ambassador Varric made his grinding laugh sound. "This is exactly what we expected from humans. Reckless, violent solutions to complex problems. You would rather die gloriously Then accept that some problems cannot be solved. You're wrong, Jake said, turning to face the Chronari ambassador. We're not trying to die gloriously. We're trying to live. All of us, human, Zephyrian, Chronari, Etherian, everyone. That's what humans do. When people are in trouble, we help them, even if it's dangerous. Queen Lyara stood up from her throne. And if you fail, if your explosions break the asteroids into smaller pieces that spread in all directions, then we'll have tried everything we could, Jake said. And maybe some of those smaller pieces will miss the planet too. The room was quiet for several minutes. Jake could hear his own heartbeat as he waited for Queen Leora's decision. Finally, she spoke. Commander Morrison, your species has 3 hours to prepare. I am authorizing you to attempt this plan. Ambassador Varric stepped forward angrily. Your Majesty, this is madness. You're risking 3 million lives on the desperate gamble of a primitive species. Queen Liara turned her 4 eyes on the Chronari ambassador. Ambassador Varric, my people are already dead if we do nothing. At least the humans are offering hope. She looked back at Jake. Commander, I want you to understand something. If this plan fails, it will not just be the end of my people on that world. The political consequences will destroy my rule. My enemies will say, I trusted aliens over Zephyrian wisdom. Jake met her gaze steadily. Your Majesty, if this plan fails, politics won't matter. But if it succeeds, your people will see that you were brave enough to try something no one else would attempt. Sometimes the craziest plans work because no one expects them to. Queen Liara's patterns pulsed with what Jake was beginning to recognize as determination. Then go, Commander Morrison. Show us what human ingenuity can accomplish when everything seems impossible. As Jake left the conference room, he heard Ambassador Varric talking to the Etherian delegate. Mark my words, the Chronari said, in 12 hours we will be dealing with an even worse disaster, and it will be the humans' fault. Jake hoped with all his heart that Ambassador Varric was wrong. Jake Morrison sat in the pilot seat of the small human shuttle, watching the asteroid field grow larger through his front window. Behind him, Ben Torres was making final checks on the modified nuclear charges they had loaded into the cargo. Bay, communication check. Katie's voice came through the radio from the Liberty Dawn. Jake, can you hear me? Loud and clear, Jake replied, trying to keep his voice steady. His hands were sweating inside his gloves and his heart was beating, fast enough to power a small city. Ben, how are the charges looking? Katie asked. All green lights, Ben reported. 24 modified mining charges, each programmed to detonate at exactly the right moment. The timing sequence is loaded into the computer, but Jake will need to place each charge manually. Jake looked at the navigation display. The asteroid field stretched out in front of him like a deadly maze. Some of the rocks were as small as cars, others as big as office buildings. They were all moving at different speeds and in slightly different directions, creating a constantly changing pattern that would challenge even the best pilot. Remember, Dr. Park's voice joined the conversation from the command center. You need to place the charges in the exact sequence we calculated. Start with the largest asteroids at the back of the field and work your way forward. Each explosion will affect the ones around it. I've got it memorized, Jake said. First charge goes on the big rock that looks like a potato. Then the one that looks like a broken pyramid. Then the cluster of 3 medium-sized ones. Jake, Ryan Cole's voice cut in. We're showing movement from the other alien ships. They're pulling back to a safe distance. The Zephyrian evacuation ships are also moving away from the colony world, just in case. Just in case this goes horribly wrong, Jake thought to himself. Just in case I turn a disaster into a catastrophe. Beginning approach to the asteroid field, Jake announced, pushing the shuttle's engines to full power. See you all on the other side. The first part was not too difficult. The edges of the asteroid field had plenty of space between the rocks, and Jake was able to maneuver the shuttle without too much trouble. But as he got deeper into the field, the asteroids became more tightly packed. First charge deployed, Jake reported, using the shuttle's mechanical arm to attach a nuclear device to the surface of the largest asteroid, moving to target 2. The shuttle bucked and shook as it navigated between two massive rocks that were slowly rotating. Jake had to use all his flying skills to avoid being crushed between them. "Target 2. Charge deployed," he said, sweat now running down his face. "Ben, everything still looking good back there?" "All systems normal," Ben replied. "But Jake, we're getting some gravitational interference from the larger asteroids. It might affect the precision of the detonation timing. Can you compensate?" "Already working on it," Ben said, his fingers flying over his computer controls. "But this is going to be close." Jake continued deeper into the field, placing charge after charge on the designated asteroids. Each placement became more dangerous as the rocks got more densely packed. Twice he had to dodge flying debris as smaller asteroids collided with each other. 16 charges deployed, Jake reported, breathing heavily. 8 more to go. 8 more to go. Katie's voice came through the radio with urgent concern. "We're tracking a problem. One of the smaller asteroids has broken free from the main field and is heading directly toward you." Jake looked at his displays and saw the rogue asteroid approaching fast. It was about the size of a school bus and moving much faster than the others. "I see it," Jake said, pushing the shuttle into a sharp turn to avoid the collision. "That was close." "Too close," Ryan's voice added. "Jake, maybe you should abort and get out of there." "No way," Jake said firmly. "We're more than halfway done. These people are counting on us." He continued placing the charges, each one more difficult than the last. The shuttle was taking damage from small debris impacts, and several warning lights were now flashing on his control panel. 22 charges deployed, Jake announced. 2 more to go, Jake, Ben said, his voice tight with worry. "The shuttle's navigation system is starting to malfunction. You need to get to those last 2 positions fast." Jake pushed the shuttle harder, racing against time and mechanical failure. The 23rd charge went on to an asteroid that was spinning so fast it made him dizzy to watch. The 24th and final charge required him to fly through a narrow gap between 3 massive rocks that were slowly closing together. All charges deployed, Jake shouted as he pulled the shuttle out of the gap just seconds before the rocks would have crushed him. "Ben, initiate the detonation sequence." "Sequence initiated," Ben replied. "First detonation in 10 seconds. "Jake, you need to get clear of the field." The shock waves from the explosions could damage the shuttle. Jake pushed the engines to maximum power, racing away from the asteroid field as fast as the damaged shuttle could fly. And behind him, the first nuclear charge exploded in a brilliant flash of light. "First detonation successful," Katie reported from the Liberty Dawn. "The target asteroid is changing course as predicted." More explosions followed, each one precisely timed to push the asteroids in exactly the right direction. Jake watched through his rear window as the entire asteroid field began to slowly shift course like a giant flock of birds changing direction in flight. 15th detonation, Katie announced. "Jake, it's working. The field is definitely changing trajectory." 20th detonation, Ben added excitedly. "The computer models show the asteroids will miss the planet by at least 50,000 miles. Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him. They had done it. Against all odds, the crazy human plan had actually worked. "Final detonation," Katie announced. "All charges have been successfully triggered. Jake, you can come home now." As Jake flew the damaged shuttle back toward the Liberty Dawn, he could see the other alien ships approaching. Zephyrian vessels were the first to arrive, followed by the Kronar and Etherian ships. "Incoming message from Queen Lyara, Katie," reported. Jake heard the Queen's musical voice come through the radio, but now it sounded different, warmer, happier. "Commander Morrison," Queen Lyara said, "on behalf of 3 million Zephyrian citizens, I thank you. Your courage and ingenuity have saved countless lives." "We all did it together, Your Majesty," Jake replied. "My team made it possible." "Indeed," the Queen continued. "And I believe this demonstration has shown the other species exactly what humanity has to offer the galaxy." Jake could hear other voices in the background as alien representatives began talking among themselves. Even Ambassador Varick's grinding voice sounded less hostile than before. 2 hours later, Jake found himself back in the conference room on the Zephyrian ship. But this time, the atmosphere was completely different. Instead of anger and suspicion, there was respect and curiosity. After Morrison, Ambassador Varick said, "The Krenar Federation would like to formally apologize for our earlier assessment of your species. Your willingness to risk everything to save strangers shows a character that we admire." The Etherian delegate's light form flickered with what Jake now knew was approval. The mathematical probability of your success was only 3.7%. Yet you achieved it anyway. This suggests that human determination can overcome statistical limitations in ways we do not fully understand. Queen Liara stood from her throne and walked over to Jake. "Commander, you have passed all 3 tests, though you may not have realized it. The first test was respect, which you showed by risking your life for my people. The second was wisdom, using unconventional thinking to solve an impossible problem. The third was sacrifice, putting the lives of strangers above your own safety." She paused, and Jake could see warmth in her 4 eyes. "But more than that, you have shown me something I had forgotten. Sometimes the most effective leaders are not those who follow every rule perfectly, but those who care enough about others to break rules when necessary." "Your Majesty," Jake said carefully, "does this mean humanity will be accepted into the Galactic Federation?" Queen Liara smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing Jake had ever seen. "Commander Morrison, not only will humanity be accepted, but I personally will recommend that your species be given a special role as problem solvers and mediators. The galaxy needs people who think differently and are willing to attempt the impossible." She stepped closer and spoke more quietly. "Commander, when we have private moments in the future, you may still call me Gorgeous Queen, but perhaps save such informality for when we are alone." Jake felt his heart race again, but this time it was from happiness rather than fear. "I'll remember that, Your Majesty." 6 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of the new human diplomatic vessel, the Earth's Hope, as it approached the Federation, capital world. Humanity had not only been accepted into the galactic community, but had become known as the species that could solve problems others thought impossible. The radio crackled with an incoming message. "Earth's Hope, this is Queen Liara's personal ship, the Star Crown. Permission to come alongside?" Jake smiled as he answered, "Permission granted, Your Majesty, always," as the 2 ships moved through space together toward their new future. Jake reflected on how one moment of saying the wrong thing had led to saying exactly the right thing.